Long ago, the people told stories about the creation of the earth and of Turtle, Rabbit Boy, Corn Mother, and Earth Maker to make sense of the world around them and their place in it. These stories reminded the people that the two-legged, the four-legged, those that fly in the air, and those that swim in the sea were all relatives.
For thousands of years, around the circles of campfires, the people taught one another the right ways of living on the land and of using the gifts that were given to the people by the Creator for their survival. Squash, corn, and beans were among these gifts. For centuries, villages flourished in a place the Powhatan Indians called Sinacamaca. During those times, the land was rich and the waterways were bountiful. The natural environment provided the native peoples with everything they needed to survive. In Sinacamaca, as in many native communities, knowledge was passed down from generation to generation using the spoken word. The people had their own names for themselves:
The Nottaways,
Manahoacs,
Patawomacs,
Winoaks,
Chickahominies,
Monacans,
Massawomacs,
Pamunkeys.
Nansemonds.
Some names are remembered and others are lost to history. In 1607, 104 men and boys arrived from England and renamed the land Virginia. These settlers established their first permanent settlement at James Fort. In the early years of this colonial encounter, the Indians shared their knowledge of the environment with British settlers, thus saving them from starvation and the colony from collapse. The Indians were exposed to new and deadly diseases, as well as new types of dress, weaponry, and religious practices. In 1612, a map was published in England. It was drawn by Captain John Smith, a leader of James Fort. This early map of Virginia shows the names and locations of nearly 200 Indian settlements.
The John Smith map is an important historical document showing tribal differences among Virginia's first people. Chief Powhatan and the people of Sinacamaca had the misfortune of occupying the lands sought after by British settlers. Chief Powhatan, or Wanhumsanaka, the father of Pocahontas, and leader of at least 30 Algonquin-speaking tribes, is remembered for guiding his people through a time of change and uncertainty.
The Powhatans and other tribes in North America could never have anticipated the ordeal they would undergo as a result of colonization. Their native world was changed forever.
Armed conflicts in 1622 and 1644 between the settlers and the Indians further reduced the land holdings of Virginia Indians. In 1677, after Bacon's Rebellion, the Peace Treaty of Middle Plantation was signed between the British government and the Virginia Indian Nations.
This treaty established some of the earliest Indian reservations in North America.
"400 years after strangers came to this land, 4 centuries that include a revolution, a civil war, world war, and other conflicts, people often ask, what happened to Virginia Indians?
And are there still Indians in Virginia? I'm Lenora Atkins, daughter of the late Chief Leonard Atkins of the Chickahominy tribe, and this is my cousin Troy Atkins, also of the Chickahominy tribe.
And we're here at Jamestown Settlement, in a recreated Powhatan Indian village, to tell you that after 400 years of invasions of our lands by European settlers, the Virginia native people are still an important part of the history and landscape of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Virginia's native people did not perish in the 17th century. We are still here. This map shows the locations of the tribal centers for the 8 state-recognized tribes. The coastal plain is home to the 7 Algonquin-speaking Powhatan tribes: the Chickahominy,
Chickahominy Eastern Division,
Nansemond,
Rappahannock, Upper Mattaponi,
Mattaponi, and Pamunkey. To the west, in the Piedmont area, is the home of the Siouan-speaking Monacan nation.
Each of these tribes has remained close to their ancestral lands, and 2 of the tribes have managed to keep their reservation lands since the 17th century.
The duties and responsibilities of the chiefs are remarkably similar to those of the past. In contemporary times, the chiefs are elected by the voting tribal membership.
Now, let's hear from the chiefs in their own words.
I think the number one responsibility of being chief is trying to maintain a sense of community and trying to ensure that every person in the tribe has a say on what we do and nobody is left out.
Preside over meetings and make suggestions on things that we need to do and how we can go about doing it, and then get ideas from the other people, the tribal council. What do you think we need to do and how do we go about doing it? Get their ideas too. It's not all from me, it's from all of us.
I think we need to help motivate youngsters to become involved in the tribe, to relish the fact that they're Indians and to work to preserve their heritage and to tell our story to the people who don't know.
In 1607, the chiefs weren't elected. They were just sort of father to son. And of course, in modern times, people realize that that might not be the person you would want to be in a position of representing your country or nation. And so we started having elections. I think the reason they chose me is because I've always been proud of who I was. And I've always lived here. I know what these people went through because I went through the same thing.
Okay, as chief, our responsibilities aren't directly to the people. The chief does not make all the decisions by himself.
We still have an old traditional way that we elect one another. When we have our election, again, every 4 years, we pass out corn kernels and pea kernels to all of our voting members. And when we come time to vote, you pass a hat around, and if you want to vote for someone, you put a corn kernel in. If you want to vote against them, you put a pea kernel in them, and we still do that to this day.
My father is the chief of the Mattaponi. His name is Webster Little Eagle Costello, and he has been chief of the tribe for 28 years. He was born and has lived every day of his life on this reservation. He's pushing 90 years old now. So I have assumed, as assistant chief, many of the responsibilities that he would normally do. He has done a wonderful job in teaching me, and I will teach the younger ones on the reservation so that they will be prepared when the time comes that they have to take over responsibilities.
Traditionally, the chief's role and responsibilities were to make sure that everyone in his village had food, shelter, clothing. If they got sick, they had someone to take care of them. I believe that I was being prepared for this position from the time that I was born. I can remember, sneaking under the tables at my dad's and my granddad when they were chiefs, and sneaking on the table to listen to the issues. It was a burning desire in my heart, even as a small child, to know and to understand and to make a difference.
It was one of these things that I really became involved with the tribe and the tribal leadership in support of my grandfather when he was the chief. A lot of times I wished I had him to consult with and talk with, and in my own way I probably still do, but it's something that I really didn't think about preparing myself for. It was just more or less wanting the best for the tribe and to do for the tribe, and in support of my grandfather at the time that he was chief.
The signature page from the 1677 treaty indicates that Indian women held positions of leadership. The British often referred to the chiefs as kings and queens.
The Pamunkey queen, who actually ended up as the emissary, so to speak, she emerged as a very powerful leader and actually negotiated the Treaty of 1677 on behalf of all of the Powhatan tribes. And women were prominent in government. Even in my lifetime and in contemporary times, women have always played prominent roles in government. There's never been a reluctance for women to get deeply involved in the political life of the tribe.
The two remaining Indian reservations in the Commonwealth of Virginia are held by the Pamunkey and the Mattaponi tribes.
Our reservation is surrounded on three sides by the Pamunkey River, and that is a tidal river that eventually feeds into the York River, which eventually feeds into the Chesapeake Bay. Many years ago, and still somewhat today, that river was a very important source of commerce for the Indians that lived here. During shad season, they would fish for the shad and sell them commercially. They still do that today. As a matter of fact, we have a fish hatchery. We've had a fish hatchery in operation, basically, with the exception of a few years, continuously in operation since 1918. Shad generally come in and spawn. They begin about the end of March, and it runs through, we stop about the 1st of May. This past season, we put about 3.5 million fry back into the river. The season before, I think it was closer to 7 million.
The Mattaponi River has been the lifeblood of the Mattaponi tribe. Years ago, our people weren't allowed to work public jobs. We survived solely here on the Mattaponi Reservation, farming, fishing, and what have you. Had it not been for the river, this tribe never would have survived on the reservation. Every year we have a shad, herring, and striped bass run that we're very dependent on for food as well as income. And the river gives us a source of food year-round. We have a shad hatchery, and we have been doing shad restoration since 1917. This is very important to us. The river is very sacred to us. We are firm believers in giving back to Mother Earth. You can take and you can take and take, but you have to give back also, and you have to protect.
The 1677 treaty requires the payment of tribute or taxes by reservation tribes to the Virginia governor. A public ceremony is held each November at the state capitol building in Richmond.
Generally speaking, we usually take the governor a turkey or a deer or both around Thanksgiving, and that's how we pay our gratuity or our tax to the governor every year in accordance with the treaty.
Ever since I became chief, I got to go and secure that deer or turkey or something, fish or something. Sometimes you couldn't get a deer and couldn't get a turkey, either one. They get scarce at certain times, in the year. You had to depend on going out there in the river and fish, catch some big striped bass, and get 3 or 4 of them and hang them on a stick and carry them. As long as you got something good for a tribute, it's all right. It don't have to be a deer or turkey all the time.
Now, on behalf of the Mattaponi Indian Reservation, I am proud and honored to present the 355th Annual Tribute.
Virginia Indians weren't always free to discuss their ancestry.
Well, you couldn't even say you were Indian. My grandmother, about 10, 15 years ago when we started researching our history, I asked her how come we had lost so much in our culture. And she told me, almost crying, that she couldn't talk about being Indian because they didn't own the land they lived on. And if the wrong people heard you say that, you might not have a place to live.
In 1924, the General Assembly of Virginia passed the Racial Integrity Act, which denied the existence of Virginia Indians. This law required all citizens to register at birth into one of 2 racial categories, white or colored.
Of course, the Racial Integrity Law of 1924 was a backbreaker to most Indians in the whole state, not just the Monacans. And I think because of that law, a lot of the Monacans actually moved out of state.
During the time of the Racial Integrity Act, access to schooling was limited. Many tribes turn to their local churches for assistance in providing educational opportunities for their children.
I remember my brothers and sisters leaving home when they were 12 and 13 years old to go to other states to get an education. And the first pastor of the church, Mr. Kalinchak, assisting them in finding families in other states to live with so they could get an education. Some of them went to Bacon College and went to school there. There was a high school and a junior college. I'm sure it was very difficult for my mother and father to send them off because they were only like 12 or 13 years old when they went off to Michigan, and travel then wasn't like it is now. They traveled by bus and 700 or 800 miles away to go to school when they were 12 years old.
The United States Supreme Court declared the Racial Integrity Act unconstitutional in 1968.
When we were allowed into public schools was another major event, and very much one that I was involved with because I was one of the first Monacans in Amherst County that was allowed to go into public school.
The Virginia Council on Indians is a state-sanctioned advisory board which works on behalf of all Native people in the Commonwealth. Representatives from each of the state-recognized tribes may sit on the council along with members of the General Assembly and citizens at large.
I gave him the council's website and told him he could go on.
Together, the council members provide guidance and assistance on a range of important issues, from education to economic development. Education is still an important issue among the tribes. They are also concerned with the way their history is being presented in Virginia's schools.
My greatest concern today is how our history is being taught. For an example, when my youngest daughter, who is now 21, was in the 4th grade here in New County schools, I asked her on 3 different occasions what she had learned about Virginia history and about the Virginia Indians in that particular time period. The first 2 times she says, "Nothing, Daddy." And then on the 3rd time, she said, "Nothing, Daddy, except they were a bunch of mean people." Well, this told me that she did not want to be identified of who she was.
Today, young people learn about their cultural traditions from their elders.
I think we really need to cling to our heritage. I don't think we need to isolate ourselves from mainstream America, as it were, but you need to know your roots.
We've been working with this program here from the Chickahominy Tribal Center for the last 20 years. Right now we're having kindergarten to 5th grade, so we have 49 students. Once a month we teach the students history, going back from Powhatan, all the way up to now. And because there's so much that is not in the books, Assistant Chief Wayne Atkins and Preston Atkins, they come in and teach them dance.
You have one singer, one drum, it's powwow time. They believe that the drum is 2 spirits. They believe that it's the spirit of the tree that died to make the drum and the skins of the animal that is used to cover the drum. And when it is played, it brings forth what we call the heartbeat of our Mother Earth.
This is what they grew up with, and they dance what you feel in your heart.
Without a drum, we have nothing. You could have 1,000 dancers. You don't have a drum, you don't have a powwow. The drum is very, very important to Indian people.
Our powwow is held here on the Chickahominy grounds the last part of September, and it's a powwow and a fall festival, and people come from out of state. That's one of the times that you'll find a whole lot of Chickahominy people back home again. It's almost like a family reunion. We want people to come and bring their children, let the children get educated for themselves.
Although Virginia Indians were among the first tribes to encounter the European settlers, they are among the last to take their rightful place in history.
It was a matter of pride. I said, we're indigenous people. We've been here since before Virginia was Virginia.
Thus, Virginia Indians are actively building awareness for their history among the general public.
All of the 8 state-recognized tribes are seeking federal recognition.
When we achieve federal recognition, it will open some doors for us. It will allow us to compete for scholarships.
Our major goal right now is federal recognition.
It'll open the door to some healthcare opportunities that otherwise would not be available to my people.
I think it's something that's been long overdue for all those that are not able to talk about their Indian heritage for so many years.
One of our goals is to make people aware, let people know who we are and what we stand for.
And as strange as it may seem, people from the surrounding areas would often say, I didn't know there were any Indians in this area.
I think they should know that they're still here, and they were here when the others came, and the contributions they made to what we now call America.
We really helped the settlers survive the harsh winters. We helped them learn how to plant crops and to cultivate fields and to even hunt.
I think what holds the Pamunkey people together is the importance of recognizing our heritage, being proud of our heritage, and continuity in our community.
I would like the public in general to know what I feel is a lot of the true history.
We are a very important part of the history of Virginia and the United States.
I think most people, when they think about the history of Virginia and the Indians in particular in Virginia, they think about these things like the dinosaurs that existed, died, and now we're writing about them and learning about them.
We're not the history book Indians. We are alive.
We are a living, breathing tribe of people who have vibrant communities that have been preserved for thousands of years.
And not the stereotype stuff that people seem to associate with Indians.
The Indians in Virginia did not live in teepees. We never rode horses. We never hunted buffalo.
Well, you can't be Indian because you don't look Indian. So it's a lot of stereotype. People have their mind what they think Indians are supposed to be and what they're supposed to look like, not what we have evolved and had to adapt to survive.
We do have a separate history in Virginia, that we are a separate people, but even though we have that certain separate part to us, we still are part of the mainstream of Virginia society.
We need to let people know that we are here, we have always been here, and we're going to stay here.
Whereas the great Chief Powhatan ruled the Powhatan chieftain, which consisted of more than 30 tribes at the time of the British colonialization of Jamestown and encompassed the entire coastal plain of Virginia and the Monacan Confederacy to the west of Powhatan territory, far into the Piedmont region. Whereas we have derived many titles of geographic locations through our Commonwealth from American Indian names. Whereas approximately 21,172 American Indians live in Virginia. whereas American Indians have played a vital role in the life of our country, and the many contributions have enhanced the culture, prosperity, and greatness of our Commonwealth and nation. And whereas Virginians are very proud of the culture and heritage of American Indians in our Commonwealth.
Hearing our story enriches everyone's experience, not only for Virginians, but for all Americans.
And it's kind of come full circle. You couldn't be Indian, you couldn't tell anybody you were Indian, and that's the way it was in my grandfather's time, the late Earl Bass, which was the chief, and you didn't go to school, you didn't work and what have you. And of course, then it come around to where my father's time, where they were allowed to go to regular schools and what have you. But if you told people you were Indian, well, the kids went home and told their parents, and it's, well, you don't associate yourself with them, you don't have anything to do with them, this type of thing. And of course, then in my generation, it came to the point where, you know, I could say I was Indian and I was proud I was Indian. Then it's evolved again to the point where now everybody wants to know about the Indian way of life, wants to be associated with the Indian life. So what I say is it's kind of made the full circle.
As we glance into the faces of the past, we also look towards the future with new hope. If you'd like to learn more about Virginia Indians, please visit the following website.